So today we're going to do my college football show. I'm going to recap it. We're going to talk about Arkansas being, well, not fired, but firing Chad Morris, almost like they're fired. We're going to talk about, yes, the AP rankings and what they look like. We're going to talk about my team, Oklahoma, and this disastrous win they had, which is an oxymoron, which is only true in football. But I've done these uploads throughout the day, and I want to put them together in one show for the people that just want to consume them. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, the RJ Young podcast is on iTunes. It's on SoundCloud. This is going to be uploaded to it. I want to do these once a week so that, if you don't necessarily get it all that you want, you can get it over there. And I want to encourage you to sign up for my newsletter, where there's a link in the description, and I'm going to put one in the comments of this video where you can sign up. And if you sign up between now and December 7th, you get an opportunity to win this bad boy right here. It's the Hertz lamp, and you don't have to be you fan to enjoy the Hertz lamp. You can actually just voice it on other people, and that'd be just fine with me. All right, well, it's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up, time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
Ohio State destroyed Maryland 73-14, which means the Buckeyes have won 9 straight games by 20 points or more, and they outgained the Terps in total offense by a score of 192 to 1 more yard than I gained from my couch watching that game. With a 46-41 win against the Tide, the LSU Tigers snapped Alabama's 31-game home win streak. President Trump was at the game. He was the first sitting president since William H. Taft in 1909 to attend an LSU game, which is as political as this channel is going to get. Minnesota upset Penn State 31-26 at TCF Bank Stadium. Antoine Winfield Jr. had 2 picks. Rashod Bateman snatched 7 passes for 203 yards, and the win ended a 13-game losing streak against ranked opponents for the Gophers. The win against number 4 Penn State was the Golden Gophers' first against the top 5 opponent since beating number 2 Penn State in 1999. The Gophers have a 2-game lead in the West Division with 3 left to play, which means the rodent is this close to getting exterminated by Ohio State. Clemson neutered the Wolfpack 55-10, but that team lost its manhood to West Virginia 2 months ago. Georgia's defense decided to make like Judge Smales with Mizzou. You'll get nothing and like it. The 27-0 victory was the third shutout the Bulldogs pitched this season, which is the first time that's happened since 1981. Oregon and Utah didn't play this week, but nobody noticed, and the Pac-12 network probably didn't either. And when it does, you'll never see it. Baylor damn near screwed up getting College Game Day to come to the crib. They beat Texas Christian 29-23 in 3 overtimes in a game that yielded 5 turnovers, 6 sacks, and 21 penalties for 192 yards, which is 52 yards more than Max Duggan passed for and 93 more than Baylor rushed for. And my Baylors, thanks to you for putting yourself in position to take this Sooner whooping in front of a national TV audience. Meanwhile, Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma Sooners, my Sooners, barely beat Matt Campbell's Iowa State Cyclones 42-41 on Saturday night, and it's the closest thing to a bad win OU has seen in years. Jalen Hurts hit 18 of 26 passes for 273 yards and rushed for 68 yards and 22 carries. Brock Purdy passed for 282 with 5 tutties, and Breece Hall rushed for 110 on 18 carries. Oklahoma defensive coordinator Alex Grinch has some explaining to do, as the Sooners have given up an average of damn near 45 a game over the past 2. Somebody stab me. Arkansas finally did what I said they were going to do and removed Chad Morris from the driver's seat in the hopes of Jesus taking the wheel. With a 4-18 record in Fayetteville, Morris just got one more game than he of the box stealed and build a clubhouse clique Willie Taggart had, as he is 18-40 as a head coach. You can't lose to Western Kentucky 45-19 expect to be on the Razorback Christmas list, Chad. Chad Morris once worked at the University of Tulsa, and that's my segue into 3-7 TU's upset of 7-3 Central Florida in a game TU deserved to win. UCF did their damnedest to help the Golden Hurricane with a Tulsa-esque 15 penalties for 120 yards, and Seth OK Boomer tried to give me a heart attack, but I didn't stroke out, though I'm sure TU boosters did. K-State gave up the booty to Texas on a late smash from Dicker the Kicker, who just keeps trying to make me use R-rated terms to describe his elongated right leg, but I have not given in yet. Oregon State's offense played like it needed to visit the free clinic for a shot because it caught something and it might be fatal. The Eager Beavers picked up just 119 yards of offense against the Washington Huskies in a 19-7 loss. UW quarterback Jacob Eason completed just 16 to 32 passes for 175 yards with 2 picks, while Salvon Ahmed said, "I got this," with 25 carries for 174 yards rushing. With a 38-31 win against Boston College, Florida State is an Alabama State win away from bowl eligibility. Don't screw this up, Knowles. The Florida Gators anchored Vanderbilt down with a score of 56 to goose egg. Kyle Trask hit 25-37 passes for 363 yards with 2 tutties and 2 picks, while the Vanderbilt men were held to just 128 total yards and 3 of 15 on third down. Vandy might have to refill the trust fund after getting its pockets emptied like that. Meanwhile, Florida is the best 2-loss team in America, which is a lot like being the world's tallest dwarf. Southern Methodist and East Carolina combined for 110 points, 912 yards, and 60 first downs in the game. Somebody had to win 59-51. This time it was SMU. Va Tech pulled off the upset against store brand Cam Newton and number 19 Wake Forest 36-17. The Hokies are bowl eligible and looking to finish the Bud Foster era strong enough to be overranked in the 2020 preseason coaches poll. Just wait on it. It's gonna happen. Wisconsin and Iowa combined to score 46 points, which is 40 more than the good Lord intended, I assure you. Appalachian State is Carolina state champ with its wins over North Carolina and South Carolina. Transit Energy says you rank them right ahead of UGA, you cowards. Now, for the off-the-cuff part of this, because that was scripted and I like delivering the monologue scripted and reading off the teleprompter because, well, it's fun. LSU and Ohio State are clearing away the 2 best teams in the country unless you really believe that there's something left to be said about what Clemson is doing. I find it fascinating that when we talk about what Clemson is doing, we can't really put it into context because the ACC is so bad. Travis Etienne is having a year of years, a season of seasons. Now, for the off-the-cuff part of this, I want to talk about what Clemson and Alabama and LSU and Ohio State have done. I like reading off the prompter because... Now, for the off-the-cuff part of this, I like reading off the prompter. Now, for the off-the-cuff part of this, I want to talk about LSU and Ohio. Now, for the off-the-cuff part of this, I want to talk about LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson. I like reading off the prompter because reading off the prompter is fun, and, well, I grew up watching guys like Keith Olbermann and Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen and Stuart Scott, and those were, dudes that I liked, and I basically grew up watching SportsCenter on repeat at 3 a.m. in the morning because it's just awesome. So this is me having fun. But when I go to the off-the-cuff stuff, it feels a lot like, simulcast sports radio, and I am a sports radio host. So it just kind of feels, depending on how you want to consume this channel. And I've been making videos all day because manic depression is a form of being a superhero. But in this particular upload, I want to do a show. This is my college football show. I would like to do a weekly college football show. This is what my weekly college football show would look like. And I would deliver the monologue, and that was what the monologue would look like. And in the rest of this, we're going to get to some really interesting things that I have previewed coming ahead. But LSU and Ohio State feel like they're going to be in a national championship game together today. But it is just the second week of November, right? And so much can change and so much does change. But when you look at what LSU is able to do offensively, you're looking at what Joe Burrow is doing from an efficiency standpoint, and that Charlie's Angels trio of wide receivers that he has, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is reaching that upper level where his mind, body, and soul must be one, dragging Alabama defenders into the end zone. And I still believe Derek Stingley is one of the best corners in the game. Grant Delpit is an outstanding safety. Same thing with Jacoby Stevens when he's able to go. Queen had a great game. You could talk about Christian Fulton. But LSU is built a lot like Oklahoma last year. They're really, really dynamic offensively, and nobody's going to argue with that. But it's about, can you slow people down defensively? And knowing that Tua put up 41 on them, I also know that they scored 40-plus on Oklahoma last year, and this LSU defense is better than the Oklahoma defense last year. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Ohio State is just complete. Offensively, defensively, Chase Young or no Chase Young, they know what they're doing on both sides of the ball. Jeff Hafley was basically able to clean up what Greg Schiano had left and turn it into what Ohio State Buckeyes fans thought it would be. And then Clemson is just kind of there, man. I mean, we expected Clemson to not be this good Or maybe we did, but I didn't because I watched 3 of their defensive linemen go in the first round, and I watched them lose all their starters off of that defensive line, rotate some in, and all Brent Venables has done is just kind of laugh at people and say, this is what we are, this is who we are. And even when Trevor Lawrence isn't being the Trevor Lawrence of 2018, he's still got Travis Etienne reaching that upper level where he's got the glow. So you got all that and those wide receivers and Ross and Higgins, and don't really know what to do with them because the ACC is so trash. But if we end up with LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, and some other really deserving team in that 4th spot, preferably a conference champion, preferably a 1-loss conference champion, but we get to that another day, I think we're going to have a really great display. And as much as I dislike the college football playoff in its current format where we have a committee that picks people to play for what we call a national championship, I would love to see these teams get together and beat up on each other because it's just going to be so much fun. And I love this sport, and it is so much fun. All right, next segment. Is Jalen throwing? This defense is regressing. Are we really getting done up by a true freshman tailback? Brock Purdy ain't that good. Okay, CD. Catch the ball, Mott. That's 2 drop pick sixes. That's 2. How is this possible? Does Lincoln know we still have running backs? Go with your bad self, Kennedy Brooks. Let's go, Trey Jen. Wait a second. A.D. Miller still alive? Breece Hall is styling on us. When did Iowa State get all these damn tight ends? How do you overthrow Rambo? Not Trey. Kenan Mantu, what is Q doing? Wait a second. How did they score? They scored again? Oh my God. Where's K9 running to? Missed tackle. Missed damn tackle. Did Lincoln forget Mondre's on this team? Jalen, baby, no. Jalen, who are you throwing to? Jalen, what are you doing? Praise God, pardon of Motley is the truth. Worst damn win of my life. So, number 1, we got the AP writers putting LSU at 1-9-0 with a huge win against Alabama. Number 2 beats number 3 according to college football playoff rankings, but I think this is fine, right? Because LSU had a good 46-41 win, but you could talk about the defense. You could talk about both offenses combining for over 1,000 yards. You could talk about Joe Burrow, 31 to 39 for 393 with 3 tutties, and then you got Tua Tagovailoa at 4 tutties, 400 yards passing, 1 pick. He had the egregious fumble to start the game, and it was those sorts of plays that swung the game. I liked Joe Burrow. I liked his moxie. I thought the biggest part of that game was watching him run the QB draw and then run plays off that QB draw. You saw really great moxie from the defensive backs who were getting beat. Jerry Jeudy had a couple of drops that you just can't have if you're the Biletnikoff Award winner. By the way, CeeDee Lamb's probably going to end up winning that award based on what he's done, not just this year, but against Iowa State, which we'll talk about. I also think that yeah, man, I like this team. I just don't think that they're better than Ohio State. I can see it. They're 9-0, and they played top 10 teams in Texas, who was trash, but they were top 10 at the time. Of course, Alabama, they got the win. They got the win over Florida and Auburn. I mean, that's a really good schedule there. So if you want to talk about who Ohio State has played versus who LSU has played, you're going to give the edge to LSU. But when you talk about Ohio State, they have won every game by at least 20 points this year, and they've dropped at least 70 twice this year. So at number 2, Ohio State, right? They sent a message, man. Without Chase Young on the field, they're like, no, we got Sax Harrison. It's fine, among other things. And Maryland ain't any good to begin with, so I know that a lot of people want to throw that out. But I'll remind you, Wisconsin we thought was really good. And before they lost to Illinois, we still thought they were elite. And they beat them like they stole something. Same thing with Michigan State. And they are the only team inside the top 5 who has played an FBS team in all 9 of their games, right? Nobody else can say that. They scheduled Florida Atlantic, Miami of Ohio, and they beat a 1-loss Cincy team like they stole something, 42-0. And Cincy could end up playing in the American Championship this year. That's how good they are. So they just rotate in, they go deep. And I think we're talking about Ohio State this year the way we were talking about Clemson last year, right? We didn't know how good they were. We just know they were killing people. And when they got into the college football playoff, they destroyed Notre Dame in the de facto ACC championship game, and then they beat the brakes off of Alabama, and they deserve to be in a conversation as one of the greatest college football teams of all time, going 15-0. And Ohio State has an opportunity to throw their hat in the ring the way that they're running the table, and they get a Penn State team we'll talk about a little bit that has a loss, but maybe, not even maybe. I don't even think they're going to win that game. Right now, it's looking like Minnesota maybe, but nobody really trusts Minnesota, and we'll talk about that. At number 3, Clemson at 10-0, the first team to reach 10-0 inside the FBS because they got a really good win against North Carolina State where they saw themselves ranked 5th and not in the top 4, and they beat North Carolina State 55-10. Trevor Lawrence had an outstanding day throwing the ball. Travis Etienne is a monster. We know what those receivers can do. We know Brent Venables' defense has been destroying people in a year in which we thought that maybe the defensive line would take some time to kick in. No, they just reloaded. And Isaiah Simmons continues to be the truth. I really like Clemson. I think they're going to be there at the end. I mean, they run the table like we expect them to do. They'll face, I think, Virginia in the ACC championship game. And, man, whatever. Cool. Clemson at number 3, I'll take it. At number 4, Alabama. Now, that's controversial for me because they took a loss to LSU. It's a 5-point loss. But they didn't look good. I mean, you're talking about the puppies at middle linebacker in Shane Lee and Christian Harris, who essentially needed to be replaced. I mean, Terrell Lewis was moved outside to inside because they were getting beat that badly over the middle and getting picked apart. And I think, yeah, they could lose that game against Auburn. They probably won't because the offense is that potent. And Judy and Waddle and Devontae Smith and Ruggs and Najee Harris, who was a grown man against LSU's run defense. Yeah, I could just as easily see another team there. I know that a lot of people have Georgia there, mostly because they shut out Missouri in a really good win. The first time since 1981 that Georgia shut out 3 opponents in the same year. We all know that those teams were really good in the 80s. Herschel Walker, anybody? But I don't know that they're a top 4 team. I could see them there. I get it. But at number 5, that's where you got Georgia after the win against Missouri. Oregon at 6, coming off of a bye. They're moving up because somebody else had to move down. That's about what it is. They're still only got the one quality win against the number 25 Washington that look abysmal against Oregon State. I think that if they make it to the Pac-12 championship game like we all think that they will, and they face, let's say, Utah like we think that they will, that would only be their second ranked opponent win. And the year that Alabama got in 2017 without a conference championship, they had 3 ranked opponent wins, right? I think that's what you need to get in to the playoff. I think you need at least 3 ranked opponents, and they're only going to have 2 unless something drastic happens. But they're still sitting in the catbird seat pretty well there at number 6, but they still might get shafted. At number 7, Minnesota 9-0. That's the one that's getting shafted to me. I think that if you are undefeated at any level, you deserve to be ranked higher than a one-loss team. People want to talk about margin of victory. They want to talk about, the quality of your opponent and being gifted a weaker schedule. I say, hey, man, you can only beat who you can beat. And then they went and they beat Penn State like they stole something. That was not a close game. I mean, Tanner Morgan was out there dealing. Tyler Johnson was out there dealing. I mean, talking about Rashod Bateman. My goodness. Antoine Winfield Jr., 2 picks. Minnesota PJ Flex boys are here for you. And they're probably going to come out of the Big Ten West, and they're going to have an opportunity to prove it. So that'll work itself out. They beat Ohio State. They're getting in. Then Ohio State's probably getting in. But we can talk about that later. I think Minnesota is a better football team than Oregon. I think they're a better football team than Utah, who they're ranked ahead of, but at 7. And I think they're a better football team than Georgia or even Bama at this position because, again, I think that the losses matter. I don't care that you took a loss to an undefeated LSU team any more than I care that Oklahoma took a Kansas State loss to Kansas State, who is 6-3. So, however you want to draw it up, when you want to talk about better losses, kick rocks, man. If you're undefeated, there should be no conversation about the loss that you had. You're undefeated. So Minnesota, you're going to have all you want to say about this. You make it to the Big Ten championship and get to play the best team, I think, in college football in Ohio State, and put your money where your mouth is. Number 8, Utah, coming off of a bye at 8-1. Again, they're in the same predicament as Oregon. They got the one ranked win, and they got a loss against a USC team that ain't very good. It's going to fire its head coach. It has a new athletic director coming in. You need help. Both the Pac-12 teams need to beat each other, and then they need help to get in. And they could get help because there's still some chaos left in the last 3 weeks of college football season. Number 9, Penn State. I don't agree with that either, but I understand taking a loss to an undefeated team in Minnesota. People somehow feel that Sean Clifford is a good quarterback. I don't. I think he's Austin Kendall because I think if you switched them around, you get the same results. And that is an indictment of Sean Kendall. See what I did there? Of Sean Clifford. And also me saying that Austin Kendall is better than the parts that are around him at West Virginia. They can compete. They don't have anything. And they might be good next year, but we'll have to wait and see what Neil Brown can do. Number 10, Oklahoma. Drops a place and probably will drop a place in the college football playoff rankings because it took a 1-point win to Iowa State, 42-41, in a game that Iowa State could have won on a 2-point conversion late if Parnell Motley does not come up with a pick. The ceiling for this defense is the Texas game. And that's what is so frustrating about Oklahoma right now. It's like you could see them sliding in at number 4 if things break correctly because they'll get a ranked win against Baylor if they beat them this weekend. Then they get a ranked win against Oklahoma State in a couple of weeks and perhaps win a Big 12 championship against a ranked team. But you feel like this is the ceiling for this team, right? Especially with Jalen Hurts being your primary rusher. And as frustrating as it is to see Oklahoma win a 1-point game against Iowa State 42-41, it was more frustrating to see Riley just forget about the running backs. I mean, Kennedy Brooks had 15 carries and for 132 yards. He's averaging 8.8 yards per carry. And then Trey Sermon goes down. And now you're left with Ramondre Stevenson and TJ Pledger. Steven Pledger. Man, OU basketball much, RJ? TJ Pledger. And you're going, yo, man, just hand him the ball. Stop putting Jalen in these positions where he has to take off and run. And then you get the egregious interception by him late to put Iowa State in a position to win this game. And earlier on, I said, Jalen Hurts is going to throw a pick to Gabe whether you want him to or not, because he was just trying to throw it to the other team, or so it seemed, and he took ownership for that. But a lot of this is just, these are the parts they have. This is the talent ceiling that they have. I think when the secondary plays well, they'll beat a team like Texas. Can they beat a team like Clemson or Georgia? No, not today. Ohio State? Hell no. LSU? Not a chance. No. You can offensively run with them. But that's to say more about what other teams have done to catch up to Oklahoma offensively, while the gap for the defense isn't closing quick enough. 2020 might be a different year, but it feels like another year in which Oklahoma could be ranked number 4, make it to a college football playoff, and then get beat like they stole something by LSU or Ohio State or Clemson. It's just like that this year. I hate saying that. I hate being in that place because I hate knowing that there's a ceiling there, but you saw what I saw if you watched the game. At number 11, Florida, who destroyed Vanderbilt, just crushed them. And now they got 2 losses against undefeated LSU and 1 against Georgia in the world's largest cocktail party. They could be in the Sugar Bowl. We'll have to wait and see how that all shapes out for them. But best 2-loss team in college football should not be ranked ahead of the other undefeated team in Baylor. I understand. 3 overtimes to beat Texas Christian. It was a nasty game. There's over 150 yards penalties in this game. There were 21 penalties in this game. You had just 99 yards rushing for Baylor. You had just 140 yards passing for TCU. And yet Baylor managed to pull one out late. 29-23 in a game I didn't think they should be in or win. But that's the way that Baylor's been winning football games this year. And now we got game day in Oklahoma where they're going to face the best offense that they're going to see all year and a defense that can run with them. I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be a lot of fun. I think that's a top 10 team at a minimum. I would have put Minnesota at 4. Or would have put Baylor at 5. And I would have had my undefeated teams ranked at the top. But you know how I roll. Auburn at number 13, 7-2. Again, they'll get Alabama in the Iron Bowl and dash any hopes of Alabama making the college football playoff, because Alabama cannot take another L and probably is in a worse position than Oklahoma, because Oklahoma can still win its conference championship. And I don't think Alabama, it ain't going to happen, because LSU's got the SEC West division. So it's going to be, if we feel LSU and Georgia, it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about and get into. But that's where Auburn is. Michigan at 7-2. Again, better than what I thought they would be. Quite honestly, this team was looking like 6-6 there for a stretch, especially after the way they lost the Penn State game, but they bounced back with a win. They get a huge win against Notre Dame, just beat them poorly, just horribly. And now you're set up to where you might be able to challenge Ohio State. Maybe, possibly. We'll see. But if you win that game, nobody is going to want to run Jim Harbaugh out of town, because that's the game that he hasn't won. That's the game he needs to win. Then at number 15, we got Wisconsin, who struggled just a little bit with Iowa, because Iowa is defensively kind of brilliant. And, you know, Jack Cohen is what Jack Cohen is, and he threw a pick late. And I think Wisconsin's right where they're going to be, right? They're going to challenge Minnesota, but I think Minnesota's going to beat them because they have more speed on the outside and they can stretch the field in a way that Wisconsin just can't. And I think their defense is good enough to run with Jonathan Taylor. And as soon as Jack Cohen puts it all in the air, I expect Antoine Winfield Jr. to be around it. So we'll see how that play breaks for them, but I think they're right where they're supposed to be. Notre Dame at 16, whatever, man. Lost to Georgia, lost to Michigan badly. And you haven't played much of anybody. I mean, you had Bowling Green State and New Mexico on your schedule that you went and got. And now you're trying to hang up this 10 team schedule that you play as being good, and it's not. It's just not, you know? And I don't put them in the top 25, especially as a 2-loss team. Cincinnati at 8-1. Right where they're supposed to be, I believe, and they'll have an opportunity to move up as they continue to win games. They win the American Conference Championship. We'll talk about them a little differently. Same thing with Memphis at number 18. I think they're a better team than Cincinnati, but that's just me. I think Mike Norvell is putting together a season of seasons, and he's going to be a hot commodity. Arkansas, Florida State, give that man a call. I mean, the dude had enough energy to wear cornrows at Central Arkansas while playing wide receiver. That's a white dude. Keep that same energy, bring it to Florida State or Arkansas. I think at Arkansas, he's a great fit. He'd do great things. Give him some time. Give him the resources. He'll turn you into a winner. Boise State at 8-1 had a scare against Wyoming. I was up late watching that game on the when I got home. On the drive home, there was getting my buddy Kurt and my buddy Steve. I drove back from the game with them, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I had to go back and watch that game at like 3 a.m, try to figure out what was going on toward the end." I thought that Boise State might be dead in the water without Curtis Weaver. Turns out Hank Bachmeier is a dude, and shout out to Brian Harston, who's also going to be a hot commodity this year. Then SMU at 9-1, yo, they played a barn burner of a game. I thought they were going to lose that game against East Carolina there for a little bit, but they got the win, 9-1, number 20. Number 21, Navy at 7-1. Again, they're just cruising right along. I like what Navy's doing. Texas at number 22. I feel like they just swapped places with Kansas State. Whatever, they're both 6-3. That game came down to a late field goal from Dicker the kicker, but Texas is bowl eligible. Good for Texas. Whatever. Iowa 6-3, took the loss to Wisconsin. We know how that goes. Then at 24, we got Indiana breaking in. Best 2-loss team in football. Lost to Ohio State, lost to Michigan State. Take that back. Third best team. Third best 2-loss team in football. Florida's still at 1. I'm going to put Georgia at 2, Michigan at 2 there with loss to Penn State and, of course, lost to Wisconsin. But, man, yeah. Check out Indiana making moves, and then Oklahoma State at number 25. Okay, fine. That's where you want to put them. I mean, we'll see where they rank on Tuesday. Appalachian State at 73. Best team in the Carolinas. Beat up on North Carolina, South Carolina. Don't matter. This is my Carolina. Appalachian State has more of a... I can round that out. I'll round that out in the recap of the week about what I think about what Appalachian State's been able to do. Kansas State got 67 points. A&M got 42 points. Wake Forest got 38 points. La Tech got 25 points. Virginia got 12. San Diego State got 7. Iowa State got 4. Vatech got 4. Big win for them against the Demon Deacons. Way to go. Washington got 3 points. Pittsburgh got 2. UCF got 2. Air Force got 2. USC got 1. Illini, bowl eligible, got 1. Shout out to Lovie Smith, who's going bowling. I like that. I loves it. All right, next segment. Got a lot of content on OU Iowa State. Because Oklahoma was up 35-14 at halftime. Pretty much wanted to put this one away. And we're all reminded that Iowa State doesn't get blown out. That's not who they are. That's not what they do. But you're thinking, yo, look, Jalen has been playing lights out. And this running back group is getting touches. And defense only giving up 14. It's bad 14, but they're giving up 14. And then the third quarter rolls around. And you see this score gets closed to 35-21. And then it gets closed at 35-28. And we're like, what the hell's going on? But still 3:35 left to go. And Oklahoma's got the ball. And Jalen Hurts, all you got to do is not throw the ball to the other team. Sit down. Take a seat, sir. Punt the ball away. You're up. No, you're going to throw the ball to the other team and give it to them at your own 35-yard line. They're going to go punch it in. And all of a sudden, we're talking about seconds left to play. And Brock Purdy with an opportunity to just go and get you a W, get you a win. Parnell Motley comes up with a big pick. But a couple things that absolutely, fundamentally, just will tweak you if you're an Oklahoma fan about this game. The first one is Oklahoma ran the ball 41 times. 41 times. 22 of those rushes were Jalen Hurts. The Jalen Hurts offense is looking a lot like James Harden on the Houston Rockets, right? Which is to say, he's awesome, he's outstanding, he scores a lot of buckets, but the offense stalls. It gets stagnant because you're not moving the ball around. And when you're doing this stuff where you're giving Jalen Hurts the option to hand the ball off or to throw the ball away or whatever, Jalen Hurts is going to read and call himself. He's either going to run with the ball or he's going to distribute the ball to a wide receiver. He's not going to really dump the ball off to a tailback, and he's not going to put the ball in the belly of a tailback unless you tell him to. And that punch is clear. Now, a lot of this is on Hurts' shoulders in a way that I think is sort of unfair, but I also understand that, yo, man, maybe you want to be up to Lincoln and say, hey, man, we got Kennedy Brooks and we got Ramondre Stevenson, and when we hand the ball to the thoroughbreds in the backfield, good things happen. We move the ball and we go score. Everything can't be throwing the ball to Charleston Rambo and CeeDee Lamb, and I get it. CeeDee Lamb had one hell of a day. 8 catches, 167 yards with the tutties. Had 144 yards receiving in the first half, but that's the thing. In the first half. The second half, you got goose-egged. You got goose-egged in the fourth quarter. You got outscored in the second half 27-7. How does that happen if you're Oklahoma and you average going into this game nearly 600 yards per game and 49 points per game? That can't happen, right? You have to be able to move the ball. And I get that people are going, can we even trust Lincoln Riley with a lead now because we have post-traumatic stress from the Rose Bowl, being up 17 and losing that game to Georgia. And then you're watching these other games, like the one where you had a lead against Kansas State and you're up 17-7 and you ought to be running the ball. And you have losing that game and not being able to stop them. And that's the offense, right? I understand. We all got beef with the offense. Like Jaden Hazelwood was not seen. And I get it. For me, it's like CeeDee Lamb getting 2 targets, which is a thing that has happened. They rotate him in, they rotate him out, and nobody knows how to stroke those guys' egos better than Dennis Simmons. You got to remember, Dennis Simmons goes back to claiming Michael Crabtree as a pupil, which means D.D. Westbrook was also his, which means that dude who was a Heisman finalist as a wide receiver is his. And CeeDee Lamb seems like he's going to win the Biletnikoff Award this year going away. I mean, the guy had 36 catches going into this day, right? Now he's up to like 44, but he's closing in on 1,000 yards receiving in just 9 games. I get it that Lincoln Riley said, well, this.
Thrilled to get a win. Obviously, not real enthused that we, let the game get a lot closer than, we're going to feel like that we should have. But, like I told the guys in there, I mean, you go back and you watch videos of championship teams after the fact and they recap their seasons or what it was like. And a lot of times you have in your head that everything went perfect and everything went right and smooth and played great all the time. And most of the times you have a couple of very, very defining moments and tough games, tough situations you have to overcome. And, we did tonight. Give Iowa State credit. They made a nice run certainly there at the end. A lot of things that we didn't do very good there at the end of the game, really on all 3 sides, and had to make a play in the end. And secondary made a monster play there, obviously, on the 2-point conversion. So, you leave this one, again, number one, thrilled about the win. Winning's hard. It's hard in November, and we knew coming in how darn good they were. And, I thought for stretches of this game we probably played the best ball that we have all year, just really as a team. We separated from them, really dominated the game for a large period of time, and then disappointing to not finish it, but not it's still a win, and that's what it's got to be. And so proud of getting a win, and a lot of things that this team's got to continue to grow in and get better, and that's the case in November. That's, I think, been a key to our success in November over the past several years. Is you find a way to win these tough ones, you keep getting better, and you keep moving on, and that's what we're going to do.
But that ain't going to cut it for the rest of us, man. That's not what it's going to be for the rest of us. For the rest of us, this is not a good look because Oklahoma is in the very unique position of not just needing to win, but needing to win in style. You need to leave no doubt that you are one of the best teams in college football to get into that playoff. But as I have said before in previous uploads, previous segments, look, man, this doesn't feel like the kind of team that can go and beat Clemson or Ohio State, my God, or LSU. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about getting into a playoff to play those cats. I don't see it, man, because the ceiling for this defense looks like the Texas game, which is great. But Sam Ehlinger and that Texas offense is not Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. It is not Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins. And it is certainly not Joe Burrow and his Charlie's Angels trio of wide receivers, to say nothing of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who reached that upper level where his mind, body, and soul must be one. He said, boys, I'm going that way. Hitch a ride. And he carried Alabama defenders into the end zone. What do you think he's going to do to an Oklahoma defense? Delarrin Turner-Yell, I love his demeanor. He was in on every play. But boy, wrap somebody up, put him down, trouble. The same thing we could be said about Patrick Fields. Kenneth Murray Jr. overrunning plays. It's just the last couple of games, he just hasn't looked like the guy who looked like he was going to win the Buckeyes Award. Like he looked like he was going to win. He was going to win it. And you're seeing just these mistakes, and you're seeing guys just drop passes, they hit him in the hands. I actually got this chicken and the egg argument with my buddy Steve about should we ask Oklahoma's defensive backs to catch the ball every time that hits them in the hands? To which I would say no, because they're not wide receivers and they play defensive back for a reason. But also because wide receivers catch a lot of footballs all the time. And they know that the ball's coming to them. And when you're playing defensive back, it's a lot like somebody saying, here, catch, and throwing their keys at you 1,000,000 miles an hour. Sometimes you catch it, sometimes you don't. You always feel like you should have, because that's the mentality that we coach into you as an individual. But I also think that it's moot if you knock the ball out of their friggin' hands. Like, let them catch it and then get the strip fumble. And don't do the stupid stuff like what Buki was doing with the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty to put them in a position to... There were some stupid penalties in this, but there were also just, what are we doing with Breece Hall, man? Like, that kiddo, outstanding tailback. One of the best tailbacks in the country that was low-key a superstar that nobody was talking about because, I mean, Marcus Hicks, number one recruit in the state of Kansas. Committed to Oklahoma, signed to Oklahoma, probably going to redshirt the rest of this year, right? Great defensive tackle. He's going to be really, really good for Oklahoma. The dude behind him was Breece Hall. Breece Hall rushed 1,000 yards in high school. 2,000 yards. That's a lot. And Breece Hall was my pick coming into this year's Big 12 Freshman of the Year, and he finally started getting some carries and playing like it. And that dude has run on you. 110 yards, 18 rushes, 6.8 yards per carry. And that's a problem for Oklahoma because now you have Puka Williams Jr., who everybody would think is one of the class running backs in this conference, and if not for Chuba Hubbard, would be the class running back in this conference. Then who is James Gilbert at Kansas State? Who is that dude running on you for what he was doing? And then now you're talking about a true freshman in Breece Hall who was styling on Oklahoma. And where was Deshaun White? Where was Kenneth Murray? I mean, the only guy that I felt really good about was Neville Gallimore. You know, LaRon Stokes played well too. He's been looking pretty good, but Q Overton just wasn't having it. And these slants that they're running and they can see them, Grinch. They can see it. They know where you're slanting. You're tipping your pitches. They see curveball, they hit curveball. And if you've seen this for back-to-back weeks and you had a bye week to prepare for this, wouldn't you want to change something? And I get it. Grinch took the blame here.
Yeah, and you know, do we think it's going to get easy? Do we think that you know that our performance to a certain point will be enough to carry us through the course of the game? Do we think that the offense is going to take the reins and carry us home, and our performance doesn't matter? And the reality is in defensive football, the tackle has to be made every single snap, regardless of the scoreboard. So it never does get easy. We can had a good week of practice. Doesn't matter if you don't tackle on Saturday. That doesn't freaking matter. And so in any event, that's something that. Just as you analyze again, whether it's at an end of a half or a possession or two in the first half or possession in the third quarter, fourth quarter, what's the scoreboard read? Does that impact us? Whatever it is, that's just something that continues to be a frustrating deal for us because you're not seeing the same, urgency, intensity, energy, and obviously execution for 4 quarters. And so we got to do a better job as coaches.
So when we talk about Alex Grinch, and we talk about the defense, and we talk about it being simple, and I get that there's all the jokes that are being made about Mike Stoops being on the premises, Mike Stoops being in the building. I think Mark Mangino even called for Mike Stoops to be rehired to Oklahoma, which tells you all you need to know about why Mark Mangino does not have a job right now. But to that end, effort is something you could coach, sure, but can you coach tackling? Yes, I think you can, and I think that you don't get a lot of opportunities to go out there and tackle. I'm not being facetious when I say that. I think that you really have to work hard at teaching kids how to tackle in this day and age where it's cheek on cheek. You put your cheek on their butt cheek, you wrap them up, you roll down. That's what you're going to have to do to win. That's what you're going to have to do to put people down on the ground. And the gang tackling, I get it, but also the lack of turnovers is one thing. And I know that we all are preaching turnovers because that's what Grinch was preaching when he walked in. So turnovers are in our head. So that's all him. Right? And when you only got 6 through 9 games, saying that you need 24, yo, dog, like, they ain't going to come up with no 8 takeaways in the next 3 games. You know what I'm saying? But apparently, you said, look, 24 takeaways get you 9 wins no matter what the offense does, and we know what the offense does. Still, you would have loved to seen that number get to 24 or even 20, because last year they had 11. And we're talking about a Mike Stoops defense being better than this defense? No, that's not true, and most people would say that, right? Because you look at the points per game, which is what I would look at, because coming into that game against Iowa State, you're giving up just 23 a game, right? And then you gave up back-to-back games of 40-plus. Think about this. Iowa State and Kansas State have combined for 7 losses this year. 7 losses, 11 wins. Both of those teams put up 40 on Oklahoma. Oklahoma's given up an average of 45 a game. That's over the last 2 games. That's not good, man. That needs to get fixed in a hurry because Baylor is that squad. Baylor can do this. Baylor knows how to win these close games because that's all they've been doing. In Oklahoma State, they feel good about having the best running back in college football. And if Puka Williams Jr. can do that, James Gilbert can do that, Breece Hall can do that, what do you think that Chuba's going to do? That's going to be a long day. You got to get this figured out. You can't have these things where you have 9 sacks against Texas and just 1 since then. 9-1. That can't happen, man. You got to get more pressure on the quarterback. And Brock Purdy was just sitting back there. He passed for 5 touchdowns, 202 yards and 5 touchdowns. Passes to tight ends mostly. Wasn't like Deshaunte Jones or Petaway were lighting you up. No, it was the tight ends. It wasn't even Charlie Kolar. These are things that really you fix with scheme, but you fix with what he said, mentality. And I get it. It's embarrassing, and it was embarrassing to watch for many fans. And Oklahoma is a unique place in Oklahoma sports culture in that we expect to win, and we expect to win going away. And a win can feel like a loss, as I have said and I've made jokes about. And I've kind of tongue-in-cheek with the segment video there that a lot of people like because I just want to channel what everybody's feeling because I understand. But I also want it understood that they got the W and they're still in this thing. They ain't as far ahead as they would want to be because Bama would say, hey, we took a loss to a really good LSU team and they only beat Iowa State by 1 point. To which we all say, yeah, check the scoreboard though. We got the conference championship, you don't. And we'll have that argument when we need to get there. But in looking at this game, if you lose Trey Sermon and you lost Kenneth Mann and you might have lost Adrian Ely, those are all huge things that you have to counter for ahead of Baylor and the rest of the way because Adrian Ely was the only guy outside of Creed Humphrey on that offensive line that I trusted full stop. That guy had played outstanding football, just awesome football at right tackle. And the idea that you have to move Tyrese Robinson over there is not a good thought because he didn't look good against Kansas. You need your best offensive line playing right now. And to not have your full assortment of quote-unquote fresh tailbacks also just goes back to what we had last year, which is Kennedy Brooks is basically the only healthy back left. So now you're down to Kennedy Brooks, TJ Pledger, Ramondre Stevenson, but I like the tandem of Ramondre and Brooks. I like Thunder and Lightning in that way, and I think that's going to be okay. I don't like having lost Kenneth Mann, but you also knew that Caleb Kelly suited up. Robert Barnes did not suit up. That's another thing that we need to talk about. Probably going to redshirt this year. But Caleb Kelly is now go. Like, if you don't see it with Kenneth Murray or Deshaun White, Levi Draper ain't getting in there. He's just out. Like, they don't want to play him. Odom does, I don't know what to tell you, folk. So, and we saw Brian Meade didn't have it against Kansas State, and he didn't seem to have it against West Virginia. There's so much to fix here, and Lincoln Riley's tone is completely flipped. He's gone from saying when he was undefeated, we have so much stuff to get better at, to now we're a good football team. And, a win is a win. You look back on this season, and you'll say, look, there were these things that happened, there were those things that happened, and we all were here for it, and that's how these things go. Seasons are their ebbs and flows, and W's are W's. But if you're a fan watching this team, and you're looking at what Minnesota just did to Penn State, and you're looking at what Ohio State just did to Maryland, and you're looking at what Clemson did to North Carolina State, and you're seeing that Georgia shut Missouri out. Shut them out. And you're looking at LSU beating a really good Alabama team. You don't feel great about Oklahoma, but you know you can go up there and beat Baylor, and that's what you got to do. Beat Baylor, then figure it out for the next week, beat TCU, figure it out for the next week, beat Oklahoma State, figure it out for the next week, win a Big 12 championship, and then pray. Because Oklahoma is in that position right now. You have to pray to get in. 2, you have to pray that the defense plays like Sugar Bowl Trevor Knight played in the Sugar Bowl. Because that's the only way I could see this actually getting to a national championship game. And even that is difficult to really consider. All right. Next segment. Chad Morris, who becomes the second Power 5 head coach to get fired on his day off. Chad Morris signs a 6-year deal with Arkansas 2017 worth $21 million. They feel pretty good about it after hiring him away from Southern Methodist, but it wasn't really the Southern Methodist part of his game that they was feeling good about. They was feeling really good about the Clemson part of his game, where he was offensive coordinator of basketball on grass. They won some games. They got to some national championships. Dabo Swinney still got that train rolling. But before that, Chad Morris was doing a doggone thing at my alma mater at the University of Tulsa. And that's after he was doing a doggone thing at Lake Travis, where he was coaching quarterbacks and winning trophies. And then all of a sudden, he gets to be the Woo Pig head coach, and the Woo Pig head coach ain't for you, dog. It ain't for you. 4-18 as a head coach with losses too. Count them. Western Kentucky yesterday. Ty Story lit that behind up 45-19 to Western Kentucky to the Hilltoppers. Hilltoppers rolled in and got W's in Woo Pig Stadium. That's not what it's actually called. I'm just making a joke there because, well, there's nothing but jokes to be made about Arkansas football at this time because Arkansas fans know it. And I understand that Arkansas fans got to feel real good about themselves right now because they wanted to get Chad Morris all the way up off the blacktop. And now that he all the way up off the blacktop, they get to go do the head coach search thing too. Now, don't mess this one up. Go get Mike Norvell at Memphis. Call it good. All right? That's free. Go get your mans. Because you can mess this up. You can mess this up real bad. I understand that Hunter Yurosek did not hire the one man's the Chad Morris, but I also understand that a search firm, a search firm. Nah, man, save your money and just come to the channel and we'll hook you up. We'll hook you up in the comments too. Leave who you think should be the next head coach for the Arkansas Razorbacks in the comments. And don't say nothing asinine like Nick Saban, all right? Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. I'll let you slide with Brent Venables. He ain't going to take the job, but it's not as asinine as saying, yo, let's go get the dude who's been the most dominant college football head coach of all time and see if he wants the job. No, that's not what it's going to be. Don't say stuff like Lincoln Riley, Dabo Swinney, Ryan Day. Be realistic in what you want and who you want it from. Now, that said, Arkansas has losses in the Chad Morris era to North Texas, Mason Fine and them, San Jose State, Josh Love and them, Western Kentucky, Ty Story and them, and that story, well, pun intended, is amazing. And there's a few other ones that I could think in there that I could throw in there, but I don't need to really do that because all you really got to do is look at Chad Morris's Power 5 conference record against, Power 5 coaches, and you get what you need. Matter of fact, no, you get what you need, but you don't always get what you want. That's what it is for Arkansas Razorbacks football right now. So, knowing all that we know about what's going on with Arkansas Razorbacks football, knowing the pride that Hogs fans have for a football team that's won one national championship in its existence, who you think we're going to go take that job to be the man in the state of Arkansas? I say Norvell because I think it would be a move up. I think that he got Memphis right where he wants Memphis, but I also think that he's going to have his pick of jobs this year. There's also some other dudes out there that I think you should go take a look at. One of them is Jason Kanda at Toledo. I likes the man. I likes them a lot. Maybe you actually want to go and get somebody else that's been doing some really nice things, particularly in, the non-Power 5s. Because, when I look around and I see Josh Heupel over there at Central Florida, maybe you want to give him a look. I'm just saying. The American is littered with a bunch of dudes that I think going to get head coaching opportunities in Power 5 conferences like Luke Fickell, among others. But, yo, man, maybe you would do what I would do, which is, short of Mike Norvell, go give Bill Blankenship a call, okay? Do a little research on Bill Blankenship. I understand. A high school coach, you're not going to want to do that. But anybody that tells you what Bill Blankenship is about and tells you that he built a recruiting base that allowed Philip Montgomery his only winning season as a head coach, you understand what I'm getting at. But more than that, Arkansas fans want to compete in the SEC. And they want to be not the laughingstock of college football. And I understand what it means to be the laughingstock of college football because take a look at OU's defense 2017-2018, particularly against Iowa State last night. You understand what I'm talking about. I also get that, y'all probably feel good about this. There's a weight off your shoulders. You feel some sort of relief because I made this video about how Arkansas Razorbacks football collapsed. And yes, there are a few things that I would redo in there. Notably, I would include the very short tenure of John L. Smith. But what were you getting out of this? I mean, because if you let the man continue to go on and get fired like this, now we have a 1-to-1. Now we have somebody that actually was just as bad or worse in many cases than Willie Taggart. Now we get to talk about, a dude that really didn't get all the time in the world to turn around a program that wasn't great. And now, as bad as it is to say, how the hell did Bobby Petrino pull this off? How did Bobby Petrino make Arkansas into one of the best teams in college football at one point in time in the SEC West? Remember when the SEC West had 3 of the top 5-7 teams in all of college football? Not unlike it is right now where they had LSU, Auburn, and Alabama. Arkansas want to get back to that. I understand that. But I also was always thinking that Arkansas was having a ways to go. So now that we know that we got Chad Morris up out the paint, we can talk about $3 million that Arkansas paid out to dudes to come through and beat them down. Yeah. I get that Oklahoma has sustained excellence for 20 years, give or take. And there's dudes that can remember the Schellenberger year, and they can remember the Blake years, they can remember the Gibb years, and yada, yada. But, you got to go way back before you get to Gomer Jones. But it ain't never been for Oklahoma what it is for Arkansas. Matter of fact, I don't know what team it's been like that for in the Power 5. We really we gotta look around, don't we? We gotta Oregon State, but Oregon State ain't got no national championships. They ain't got no tradition like that. You know, you had some doormat years for some of these schools, but with Chad Morris being, because the buyout was $11 million. That is 14 for Bielema. They just got done paying that. So apparently they took the buyout money that they were using to pay Bielema, and they said, hey, Chad Morris, here. Now, going back to Texas, maybe coach some high school football. And that's the worst part about this for me personally is Chad Morris knows from offensive football. Like, he knows what scheme works. He knows how to teach quarterbacks. And that was always frustrating to watch is he couldn't get a quarterback that could just pick it up and put it down. And more than that, John Chavis was not figuring it out on the defense. So what is there to figure out if you can't figure out on defense, can't figure out offensively? Yeah, you got to blow it up and you got to start over. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. And maybe you can go get somebody in there that you like. Because I think that's what Arkansas needs right now. I think you need to get somebody in there that you like and likes being there. The way that people like Scott Frost in Nebraska. Nebraska sucks. Nebraska's awful. But people like Scott Frost. And I say this all the time. 3 things get you jobs, and you only need 2 of them. Have people like you, be good at your job, arrive on time. If you arrive on time and people like you, you can go 4-8 at Nebraska. It's fine. I'm not sure that everybody liked Chad Morris. And I get that wins do a lot for whether or not people like you or don't like you. So, you know, but that's also part of being good at your job. And he wasn't good at his job. And I feel some sort of way for him because Chandler Morris is committed to play football at the University of Arkansas next year. That's his son coming out of Highland Park. And that's after he already took in, you know, Jerry Jones's grandson, and he's playing a little bit of quarterback out there. So I'm interested to see what this recruiting class becomes because there's a couple of Arkansas commits that are in there that might actually start looking the other way. Blaine anybody, but we'll see what that means for Oklahoma and others. But right now, if you're an Arkansas fan, let me know how you feel in the comments about this because I understand that I was saying that it ain't going to be long, and that was like 2 months ago, and it ain't been long. So now that it is done and it is over, let's take a look around the country. Who would you like to see? Drop it in the comments below. We will follow this as it continues to go because this is about to get wild and entertaining. Deuces.